The year was 2847, when humanity received its first and only message from the Galactic Council. The transmission came through every radio frequency, every satellite, and every communication device on Earth simultaneously. The message was simple and cold. Humanity was deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable, and too primitive to join the community of civilized species. The Council had watched humans for 300 years. They had seen the wars, the environmental destruction, and the endless cycle of violence that defined human history. Ambassador of the species delivered the final verdict. His four eyes narrowed as he spoke to the human delegation aboard the neutral station. He explained that the Council had decided unanimously. Humanity would be confined to their solar system forever. A dimensional barrier would be placed around the entire system, preventing any human ship from ever leaving. No trade, no communication, and no contact would be permitted with the outside galaxy. The human delegation protested. They argued that humanity had changed. They pointed to the unified Earth government, the end of major conflicts, and the advancement of peaceful technology, but simply raised one of his 6 arms and silenced them. He told them that the Council had seen species like humans before. They always destroyed themselves or tried to destroy others. It was better to contain the problem before it spread. 3 days later, the barrier went up. A shimmering wall of energy surrounded the entire solar system. Human ships that tried to pass through it were simply pushed back. There was no destruction, no violence. The Council considered themselves merciful. They had given humanity the greatest gift possible. They had saved the galaxy from the human plague. For the next 200 years, humanity existed in isolation. At first, there was despair. Many believed that humanity would slowly die out, forgotten by the universe. But something else happened instead, something that the Council had not predicted and could never have imagined. Humans adapted. Without access to the galaxy's resources, humans were forced to innovate. They developed new forms of energy that were cleaner and more efficient than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They created artificial ecosystems on every planet and moon in their system. Mars became green. The moons of Jupiter became thriving colonies. Even the dark edges of the solar system were lit up with human stations and habitats. The barrier that was meant to be their prison became their protection. Without outside interference, humans developed their own unique technology. They created medical treatments that extended life by centuries. They built ships that could travel at speeds the Council thought impossible. They developed weapons that were never used because there was no one to fight. Most importantly, humans learned to work together. The old divisions of nation and race faded away. A new human identity emerged, one that was forged in the fire of exile. They called themselves the children of Saul, and they remembered what the galaxy had done to them. They did not forget, but they did not seek revenge either. They simply grew stronger. Meanwhile, outside the barrier, the galaxy changed. The who had led the charge to exile humanity grew complacent and weak. The other Council species followed their example. Without any real threats, they stopped innovating. Their military forces became ceremonial. Their scientists focused on minor improvements rather than bold discoveries. The galaxy entered a long period of stagnation. Then the Void Swarm arrived. No one knew where they came from. Some believed they traveled from another galaxy. Others thought they were an ancient species that had been sleeping for millions of years. What everyone agreed on was their purpose. The Void Swarm consumed everything. They ate planets, stars, and entire civilizations. Their ships numbered in the billions, and they showed no mercy and no interest in negotiation. The first species to fall was their empire of 40 systems was gone in less than a month. They sent their fleet to help, but their ships were outdated and their tactics were ancient. The Void Swarm tore through them like paper. Ambassador, now the High Chancellor of the Council, watched in horror as system after system went dark. The Council called an emergency meeting. Species that had not spoken in centuries gathered to discuss the crisis. But there was no solution. Their combined fleets were not enough. Their weapons were too weak. Their shields could not hold against the swarm's attacks. For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced extinction. It was a young scientist named who suggested the unthinkable. She had studied the barrier around the human system for decades. She had detected strange readings coming from within, energy signatures that made no sense, ship movements that known physics. She believed that the humans had not simply survived their exile. She believed they had thrived beyond anything the galaxy could imagine. Chancellor refused at first. The idea of asking the primitives for help was humiliating, but as more systems fell, as more species were consumed, his pride began to crumble. Finally, when the swarm reached the edge of space, he made the decision. He would go to the barrier himself and beg the humans for help. The journey to Earth's solar system took 3 weeks. Ship was old and slow, a relic from a time when they had been proud. When he reached the barrier, he sent a transmission through. He identified himself and requested permission to enter. For a long time there was silence. Then a single voice responded. The voice belonged to Admiral Sarah, commander of the Sol Defense Fleet. Her tone was calm and measured. She told that his transmission had been received. She asked him to state his purpose. For the first time in his long life felt small. He explained the situation. The void swarm, the falling empires, the desperate need for help. He admitted that the Council had been wrong. He admitted that humanity deserved better than exile. He asked, with genuine humility, if humanity would help. There was another long silence. Then Admiral responded. She told that the barrier would be lowered temporarily. He was invited to meet with the Human Council on Mars. She warned him that what he would see might surprise him. The barrier shimmered and a small opening appeared. Ship passed through. What he saw on the other side changed everything he believed about humanity. Ships of impossible size patrolled the space around him. Stations the size of small moons hung in the void. The planets he passed were not the barren rocks he remembered from the old records. They were alive with cities and lights and activity. Humanity had not just survived. They had built an empire within their prison. The meeting on Mars took place in a great hall that overlooked a vast red forest. Trees that had been engineered to grow on Mars stretched for hundreds of miles. Sat across from the Human Council, 12 individuals who represented all of humanity. They listened to his request without interrupting. They showed no anger, no resentment, and no satisfaction at his humiliation. When finished speaking, the head of the council, a woman named Director Vance, stood up. She told him that humanity had been watching the galaxy since the barrier went up. They had found ways to observe without being detected. They knew about the void swarm. They knew about the falling empires. They had known this day would come. Asked if humanity would help. Director Vance did not answer immediately. She told him about the 200 years of exile. She spoke of the despair and the struggle and the deaths of millions who had worked to build a new civilization from nothing. She told him that many humans wanted to let the galaxy burn. They wanted revenge for what had been done to them. But she also told him something else. She said that humanity had learned something important during their exile. They had learned that revenge was poison. They had learned that the future was more important than the past. And they had learned that true strength was not about destroying your enemies. It was about protecting those who could not protect themselves. Director Vance told that humanity would help, but there would be conditions. The barrier would come down forever. Humanity would take its place in the galaxy as equals, and the Council would admit publicly that they had been wrong about humans, agreed to everything immediately. He had no choice. His people were dying. 1 week later, the barrier fell completely. The Sol Defense Fleet emerged into the galaxy for the first time in 200 years. Their ships were sleek and powerful, designed with technology that the Council could not understand. Admiral led the fleet personally. She commanded over 10,000 ships, each one more advanced than anything the swarm had faced. The first battle took place in the system. The Void Swarm had massed a force of 50,000 ships to continue their advance. They expected another easy victory. Instead, they found the humans waiting for them. The battle lasted only 6 hours. Human weapons cut through swarm ships like they were made of glass. Human shields held against attacks that had destroyed entire fleets before. Human pilots flew with precision and courage that left the watching council species speechless. When it was over, the swarm had lost 30,000 ships. The humans had lost 12. Admiral sent a message to the surviving swarm ships. She told them to leave this galaxy. She told them that humanity had claimed it as their protection. The swarm did not respond with words. They retreated. Over the next 3 years, humanity led the campaign to push the Void Swarm back. They shared their technology with the Council species. They trained their soldiers. They rebuilt their fleets. The galaxy that had once rejected humanity now followed them into battle, and slowly, system by system, they won. The final battle took place at the edge of known space. The remaining swarm forces made their last stand. Director Vance herself commanded the combined fleet. Ships from every species in the galaxy fought side by side with human vessels. The battle lasted for 3 days, and when it ended, the Void Swarm was gone, destroyed completely. In the aftermath, the galaxy gathered to honor humanity. Chancellor, now old and near death, gave a speech. He apologized for the exile. He thanked humanity for their mercy. He declared that humanity would forever be remembered as the saviors of the galaxy. Director Vance responded with her own speech. She said that humanity did not want to be saviors. They wanted to be partners. They wanted to build a galaxy where no species was ever exiled again, where differences were celebrated instead of feared, where the mistakes of the past were lessons for the future. The new Galactic Council was formed with humanity as a founding member. Admiral became the first human ambassador. She often thought about those dark days of exile, when humanity had been alone and forgotten. She thought about how far they had come and how much they had sacrificed. But mostly, she thought about the future, a future where the stars were open to everyone, a future that humanity had earned not through conquest or revenge, but through resilience and compassion. The galaxy had tried to bury humanity. Instead, they had planted a seed that had grown beyond anyone's imagination. And now, that seed had become a tree that would shelter the entire galaxy.